Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back again tonight. We have had a great time looking at a number of topics related to pregnancy, and we're now delving into the postpartum period. Tonight, I want to talk about what you can expect for mom in the usual postpartum period. Definition for postpartum can be up to 12 months after you've had your baby. However, we're going to talk about changes that will happen within the first 6 weeks after you've had your baby. So, mom has had baby. If we've been at a birth center or in a hospital, back at home. If you had home birth, you're definitely at home. And now we want to see how to get mom comfortable, baby comfortable, and to just progress from there during the 6 weeks after birth. One thing to watch out for is the psychological impact of birth. We do know that there are lots of hormonal changes that are going on, and I really don't like what I just said about that. We're going to start again. Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming back tonight to discuss the postpartum period and what we can expect for mom. I'm going to talk tonight about normal changes, and we'll also discuss some of those things that can be abnormal and when it's necessary to call a health provider. So keep in mind that those first few weeks after birth are time for adjustment, time for psychological and physical changes that will be going on as well. And what we want to know is what's the normal? What's the normal to be looking for? And what's the stuff to be watching out for that's not so good? So let's take a crack at this. Whether you had your baby at home, hospital, or in a birth center, you can expect these kinds of changes. The first thing to know is in regard to psychological, there are loads of hormonal shifts and changes that are going on that happen once the baby was born and the placenta was born. The body's been undergoing all of these hormonal changes to get itself back to its pre-pregnancy state. We talk to women about the possibility of having what's called the postpartum blues, which we say you may have feelings where you're not feeling like everything's okay, you're not feeling quite right. You might have some mood swings that we would call postpartum blues, and that should be lasting no more than 2 weeks. However, if this begins to last beyond the 2 weeks and you're not able to move out of this state, then this can develop into what's called postpartum depression. And that's something that we need to be watchful for. As well as this happening to moms, dads can also experience some postpartum depression. And if this is not taken care of, it can develop into postpartum psychosis for dad. Things that contribute to this is a lack of sleep, concerns about all the changes that are happening within the family. You're adding a family member. This can cause some stresses, whether they be financial stresses within the home. These things can happen. And so we want to be watchful for that. The other thing that we know is, believe it or not, mental health is the number one cause for maternal death in the first year after pregnancy. So this is something that we need to really be watchful for. When you go in for a 6-week checkup, not only does your physical well-being need to be looked at, but also your psychological well-being. So as I normally do, let's start from head to toe and to look at what are the kinds of things that can happen from head down. We'll start to talk about that. So first of all, your vital signs should remain the same once you are back in your own home place. There should not be changes in your blood pressure, your pulse, respirations, or temperature unless there are some indicators of things that may not be going quite right. Let's first talk about headaches. You should not have bad headaches after you've had your baby. You should also not have any changes in the eyes in terms of blurriness or spots before the eyes. These are signs of preeclampsia, and often it's talked about mainly occurring during pregnancy and at the time of labor and birth. But what moms need to know and their families need to know is that you can also have preeclampsia up until 6 weeks after you've had a baby. Preeclampsia can move very, very quickly and develop into eclampsia, where you begin to have seizures. This can cause you to go into a coma and can cause you to die. So you do not want to play around with this. You want to be in touch with a provider as soon as possible. And I mean as soon as possible. You cannot afford to wait a day to see if it's going to get better. You need to be in touch with a provider right away. The other thing is respirations. Your respirations should be the same. You should not be experiencing any shortness of breath or any heart pain or chest pains. If these things are happening, you again should be in touch with your healthcare provider. These could be signs of blood clots, it could be signs of a heart attack. These are things to be watchful for. And so many things can still occur in the postpartum period that may not have presented a problem for you during pregnancy or in labor and birth. Let's move down to the abdominal area. I'm going to talk about changes that happen with cesarean section and if you've had your baby vaginally. If you had cesarean section, I'm sure that you should have received instructions from your provider in terms of how to care for the incision. At no time should you see any redness along the edges of the incision. You should not experience any kinds of discharge or or the incision opening up. If any of these things happen, you need to be in touch with your provider. Now, also to know is that the uterus, after you've had your baby, is going to be located at the navel belly button. And every day after you've had your baby, the uterus will begin to descend, and also move back down into the pelvic area where it's normally located. So after you've had your baby, again, the uterus will be at the navel. And each day it will go down about 1 finger breadth. Finger breadth is the width of my finger. So on day 1, it should be 1 finger breadth below the navel. Day 2, 2 finger breaths below the navel. Day 3, 3 finger breaths below the navel. Day 4, 4 finger breaths. So you can see that your uterus is going down as it should after you've had your baby. If you're breastfeeding, you may experience contractions. You should look at these contractions as your friend, because what it's helping you to do is to get the uterus back into shape. Now, let's look at what's happening with the vagina. Some women may have had what's called an episiotomy or stitches after they've had with the baby's birth, let's say. And those stitches were stitched up after the baby was born. Those stitches will take some time to heal. How you can help with that is that you can sit in a bathtub of warm water with just soap and water for approximately 20 minutes, doing that twice a day. The bathtub should be cleaned well prior to getting in, and again, once you get out. So make sure that happens. You want to just pat dry those stitches. Do not do any rubbing. Same thing with the incision for the cesarean section. You just want to pat that area dry. You do not want to rub. You do not want to remove the steri strips that are across the incision. They will come off on their own. Now let's talk about the discharge that you're having from your vagina. We talked in an earlier video about the normal changes in the discharge. The discharge after you've had your baby will probably be a bright red in color and a good amount. And over the days, it should decrease in amount and the color should change to a pinkish or dark reddish color and then to a whitish creamish color. Once it has decreased in the amount and once it has changed color, it should not go back. It should not get heavier in amount and it should not go back to a reddish color. If it does, it's the indication that two things. One, that you're either doing too much, or the possibility that you're developing an infection. Other signs of a possible infection would include if you are getting odor from that discharge from the vagina. That's not something that you want to see. Also, if you begin to have an increase in your temperature would be considered a problem if it gets to be 100.5 or above 100.5. These would be indications of an infection. Now, from there, let's go to the legs. You should not have swelling in your feet, ankles, legs, hands, or face after you've had your baby. And if it's possible that this could develop after you've had your baby, during that 6-week period of time, again, these are signs of preeclampsia. If you're getting swelling in your ankles and feet and also in your legs, it can also be experienced again in the hands and face. These are signs of preeclampsia. Again, do not play with this. Contact the provider and be seen. Now, the other thing to talk about, many people are always wondering about when can they have sex after they've had a baby. Well, keep in mind a couple of things, and I want to say this to the dads. Keep this in mind. We have stitches that are there that need to be healed up. We want them to heal without any problem with infection or them breaking open. The other is that the discharge from the vagina is because the uterus needs to still heal. It takes the uterus 6 weeks to totally heal up from the location where the placenta was attached. And so you want to think about these things and keep these things in mind when you're thinking about when is the next time that you can have sex. So I would tell you to consider these things when you're considering any sort of sexual activity. Other things to be considering is contraception. And I always ask moms during pregnancy, so when is the next time you want to have another baby? And some are like, oh, maybe not for another 2 or 3 years. And some are like, we don't even want to talk about that topic. But it is something to be realistic about and to consider when is the next time you want to have a child. Some may choose that this is their last time that they want to have a child. Well, then we need to be concerned about contraception. I want to only indicate to you right now that if you are breastfeeding your baby, there are a number of stipulations that would allow breastfeeding to be considered a contraceptive method known as the lactation amenorrhea method. I'm only bringing it up to say that more reading needs to be done for you to look at all of the requirements required for breastfeeding to actually function as a contraceptive method. You will have to be exclusively breastfeeding for a number of months. That means not introducing water to the baby, not giving supplements to the baby. Other contraceptive methods we will discuss in other sessions that I plan to do so we can look at the world of contraceptives that are out there, the hormonal methods, those that use hormones, and non-hormonal methods as well. So this is what I have for you tonight in regard to the postpartum period, particularly care for mom. I want to say very fully that moms need help. No matter which number baby it is, moms are going to need help. And so when friends want to know how can they help, have them bring meals, have them send you meals. Often people want to come and see the baby. That's great, but mom needs rest, dad needs rest. You all want to bond as a family, so you need your time together as well. So don't be afraid to say, well, this is not going to work for us today. Be happy with being able to schedule times when people can come and see you. Other thing to keep in mind is the baby's immune system is not mature yet, so babies can pick up infections from people visiting. So just something to let you know about and something to consider. I want to thank you for the time that you spent with me tonight. I want to say to please subscribe to my channel. I'm getting lots of views And what I would love to do is to convert those persons who are looking at my channel to also be subscribers. That will give you information on when I'm putting up new content. And I would also love for you to tell me what you would like to hear about as well. Next week, I'm very excited to let you know that I'm going to be launching my coaching program. And this will be a program that will help families to be prepared for pregnancy, to look at different providers, to make decisions about where they'd like to have their baby, and to be able to develop a birth plan so that you're able to have the pregnancy and birth more like you'd like, personalized, customized for you, and in a safe manner. So look forward for information on that. I will put that information in the description. And I'm going to hope and look forward to meeting you all when we have this webinar sometime next week. The dates right now, I'm looking at the 14th and having that repeated again later in the week. So look forward for information. And thank you again for your time. If you've liked, I'm going to tell you to share this with your mom, your dad, your aunties, your uncles, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, your friends, nieces, and nephews. Let everybody know. Thank you so much for your time and have a great evening. Bye-bye.